Ain't nothing like the right time. So this morning, I want to read from the book of Galatians 2:19 through 20, which says, "For when I tried to keep the law, it condemned me. So I died to the law. I stopped trying to meet all its requirements so that I might live for God. My old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. And today, I'm just grateful for my wife and my children and each and every one of you and God's grace and mercy. I'm just grateful for everything. You know what I mean? In this particular verse, I know I can take too much of your time because it's me. It's all me. I really should be trying my best to wake up early, but boy, we've been having some rough nights. But in this particular verse, I don't know if people familiar with the part of the scripture where the apostle Paul had to actually fuss out Peter. I think it was Peter. I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, he had to fuss out Peter because and it was funny. You can imagine it being in those days where Paul was sort of like, one person, would be obeying him and saying, one person named Come here and one person named Bitnia, you know. And what happened was that they were, he was basically trying to impress some persons who were still living by the old laws, right? And basically chastising persons for not living, you know, not doing the way that the old law says. And basically, Paul was telling the Galatians about this incident, and he was telling them, explaining to them that why he had to die to the old law. And the reason why I shared this verse is because it was a good reminder to me that in order for you to live for God, sometimes you gotta kill old habits, you know? Like in order for you to move on to the next level, in order for you to even build your relationship with God even more, sometimes you gotta kill some things that you think is normal. You know what I mean? Like he used a powerful word in here, right? And this is what this was really what stood out to me because I was like, boy, Paul using some strong words, right? He said, I died to the law, you know? And when you think about it in context, like death, unless you're speaking of it from a Christian standpoint where we know that we have another life to live, is when something dies, that's it, you know? And then because he didn't say, I put that down or I rest that and I put that away, because then that means you could come back to it. He said, I died to the law. And when you think about it, right, the Apostle Paul, that was like his lifestyle for all of his life. Like that was something that he knew. That was something that he was comfortable with. That was something that he grew up doing. That was something that all of his friends was doing. That was something that was so integrated and so much a part of his life that you could imagine how hard it must have been to convince yourself, not yourself, but convince others to change. It wasn't hard for him to be convinced because on the road to Damascus, he he went blind and he saw God himself and God had a word for him. And Ananias is the one who touched and healed him. And he went through a journey and a walk and a spiritual revelation with Christ in order for him to make up his mind and know within himself that this old part of me had to die. Like that got to go. And the message that I got out of that was that if in order for me to surrender my life fully to Christ, sometimes my old not sometimes my old ways gotta die. They gotta go. You know what I mean? And when it whether it be whatever way that you look at it, you know, if I was selfish, that got to die. You know? If I didn't have an open hand or a good heart, that part of me had to die. You know? When I was worldly and I used to be drinking and smoking and doing whatever, that had to die. Partying with friends and being up and about and being in nightclubs and these other places, that had to die. But in order for me to fully embrace the relationship that I have with Christ, hold on, sorry, but in order for me to fully embrace that relationship that I had with Christ, there was parts of me that I thought was me that I had to let go and let die, you know? And I'm on the phone. Sorry. And the sorry, y'all. And it's so funny that I even talking about this because I could remember, and I know Lavette probably can smile when I say this, but I could remember like I always used to beat myself up about who I was in my past, you know? And Lavette was one of those persons who helped me on this journey. Like I could call her my spiritual partner in this because I remember it clearly right inside the same room because this room was very instrumental in my walk with getting to know Christ. But Lavette always used to remind me, and she used to say, don't worry, like, you gotta forgive yourself. You know, you gotta move on from that. And you gotta realize that like God of his arms open waiting on you, but you gotta get past that, you know? And that right there is so important because that same statement is what allowed me to kill that part of me, Dad. And once you kill that part of you, forgive yourself for your past, you could walk into that relationship that you have with Christ. And my testimony is from experience. So I'm here to I'm not here to judge anybody. I won't do that. I won't ever do that, you know. But I just could give you some solid advice. If it's something in you that you holding on to from the past you may just have to let it die in order to see what God has for you, has in store for you. So thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak. I know I came late. I know that I can try better, but this little girl shy like that, your niece. Whew, she's asleep all